Hi everyone, I am Deepu Srikanth. Today's topic is production and cost, class 12. In the previous chapter, we have discussed the behavior of the consumer. In this chapter, we shall examine the behavior of a producer. Now we can understand what is production. Production is a process by which inputs are transformed into output. Who does this job? Production is carried out by producers or firms. A firm acquires different inputs like labor, machines, land, raw materials, etc. It uses these inputs to produce output. This output can be consumed by consumers or used by other firms for further production. For example, a tailor uses a sewing machine, cloth, thread, and his own labor to produce shirts. A farmer uses his land, labor, a tractor, seed, fertilizer, water, etc. to produce wheat. A car manufacturer uses land for a factory, machinery, labor, and various other inputs, for example, steel, aluminum, rubber, etc., to produce cars. A rickshaw puller uses a rickshaw and his own labor to produce rickshaw rides. A domestic helper uses her labor to produce cleaning services. These above producers use many inputs to produce goods and services. Each producer transformed inputs into outputs. Where do producers get these inputs and how? In order to acquire inputs, a firm has to pay for them. This is called the cost of production. The expense to buy inputs are called the cost of production. How do a firm gets revenue? Once output has been produced, the firm sells it in the market and earns revenue. The difference between the revenue and the cost is called the firm's profit. We assume that the objective of the firm is to earn the maximum profit that it can. In this chapter, we discuss the relationship between inputs and output. Then we look at the cost structure of the firm. 3.1 Production function. So what is production function? The production function of a firm is a relationship between inputs used and output produced by the firms. For various quantities of inputs used, it gives the maximum quantity of output that can be produced. Here we assume that the farmer uses only two inputs to produce wheat. Those are land and labor. A production function tells us the maximum amount of wheat he can produce for a given amount of land that he uses and a given number of hours of labor that he performs. Suppose that he uses 2 hours of labor per day and 1 hectare of land to produce a maximum of 2 tons of wheat. Then a production function that describes this relation is called a production function. One possible example of the firm this could take is Q equals K into L, where Q is the amount of wheat produced or quantity, K is the area of land in hectares, L is the number of hours work done in a day. Describing a production function in this manner tells us the exact relation between inputs and output. If either K or L increases, Q will also increase. For any L and K, there will be only one Q since by definition we are taking the maximum output for any level of inputs. A production function deals only with the efficient uses of inputs. Efficiency implies that it is not possible to get any more output from the same level of inputs. A production function is defined for a given technology. It is the technological knowledge that determines the maximum level of output that can be produced using different combinations of input. If the technology improves, the maximum level of output obtainable for different input combinations increase. We then have a new production function. The inputs that a firm uses in the production process are called factors of production. In order to produce output, a firm may require any number of different inputs. However, for the time being, here we consider a firm the producer's output using only two factors of production, labor and capital. Our production function therefore tells us the maximum quantity of output Q that can be produced by using different combinations of these two factors of production, labor and capital. We may write the production function as Q is equal to function of L and K, where L is labor and K is capital and Q is the maximum output that can be produced. Look at this table. So in this table, a numerical example of production function given in this table 3.1. The left column shows the amount of labor and the top row shows the amount of capital. As we move to the right along any row, capital increases, and as we move down along any column, labor increases for different values of the two factors. The table shows the corresponding output levels. For example, when 1 unit of labor and 1 unit of capital, the firm can produce at most 1 unit of output. With 2 units of labor and 2 units of capital, it can produce at most 10 units of output. Within 3 units of labor and 2 units of capital, it can produce at most 18 units of output, and so on. Look at this table. 18 units can be produced by using two different combinations. 10 units can be produced by using three different combinations, and 50 units can be produced by using three different combinations of input. If any of the inputs become 0, there will be no production. In our example, both the inputs are necessary for the production. With both inputs positive, output will be positive. As we increase the amount of any input, output increases. Thank you.